Okay. We got it the first time today, which is shocking. So let me get this adjusted just right. Okay. Let me put the live chat over here. Oops. Got it. I'm going to go ahead and share this. Just a second here. Hey, Ashley. How you doing today? Did it ever cool off there? Because it is so cold in Illinois right now. So very cold. I really was trying to wait until November to run the heat, and I gave in. The lighting looks really weird. Why do I look so? Let me see here. Ooh. It looks different today for some reason. What's going on? Okay. I'm going to share this in the Gently Led Sisters group. Sorry, my times have been all over, and I'm late today because I had to go to the chiropractor. She wanted me to use her table, like a compression table for her back. She's just started using it. And so I was interested to use it and see. Yes, Abby told me Esther. I'm sure she's very glad to see him. Hello, Fruitful Vine. Hello, Esther. Hello, Sarah. All right, so I got my ice here. I'm going to use my ice. See, there's my ice. Just as we talk today. Put it on there. Okay. Hi, Raquel. Good to have you on a live. We're already up to almost 10 people, so welcome, welcome. All right, I feel like I'm off center. Maybe I'm not, though. Oh, no, I'm not off center. It was just, that was weird. Okay. There we go. I think we're good now. So we can go ahead and get into it. Okay. So I wanted to talk today about modesty being more than just clothing. I am an IFB girl and I wear modest clothing, but I also try to exhibit a life of modesty in the way I conduct myself. And the Webster's 1828 dictionary definition is modest, or an adjective. Number one definition is properly restrained by a sense of propriety, hence not forward or bold, not presumptuous or arrogant, not boastful, as a modest youth, a modest man. Number two, not bold or forward, as a modest maid. The word may thus be used without reference to chastity, the blushing beauties of a modest maid. Number three, not loose, not lewd. Mrs. Ford, the honest woman, the modest wife. And then number four, moderate, not excessive or extreme, not extravagant, as a modest request, modest joy, a modest computation. So when it comes to clothing, I would definitely give the third definition to it, or even the fourth definition, not loose or not lewd, moderate, not excessive or extreme. I don't want to draw attention to my physical features. I would rather, especially to any other man, but yeah, I want the attention drawn to who I am as a person. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't practice good hygiene. I don't do my hair, but even with hairstyles, and I have something sticking up right there that's bugging me. I can see it. But even with hairstyles, this hairstyle I have today is just a messy bun, and it's one that literally takes 5 minutes. So my makeup takes anywhere from 10 to 15. I don't spend an exorbitant amount of time, but I do want to put my best face forward, no pun intended. So I do spend a little bit of time every day getting ready because I feel better. You know, I feel like when I feel better, I just act better. You know, it's kind of like a professional when he goes to work, when he dresses in a suit, he acts more professionally than if he went to work in a sweatsuit. You know, it's just proven that when you actually take a little bit of time on your appearance, you tend to act better when it comes to that. So, but I'm actually giving Abby the credit for this topic because we were talking about this the other day. And she said, Mom, most girls think that it's just clothing that needs to be modest, but modesty is more than clothing. And I completely agree. There's so much truth to that statement. So let's look at just one passage in the Bible. I don't ever want to come across like I'm preaching or teaching or whatever the Bible, because I'm not a preacher. I'm just Cassandra McMurtry, striving to do what the Bible says and be a teacher of good things. So I don't mind being a teacher, but I don't want to ever come across as a preacher, if that makes sense. So let's look at one passage in the Bible that talks about modest dress. And in the context of the verses, it mentions our works. So you can dress the most modestly in the world, wear skirts all the time, wear long flowing dresses past your ankles, but then have a horribly immodest spirit, a horribly immodest attitude, a horribly immodest way of like the way you present yourself or carry yourself. And yeah, you can still not live modestly, even if you dress modestly, in action, deed, and work. So 1 Timothy 2:9-10 says, in like manner also, and most of us know this if you're a Baptist girl, these verses. In like manner also that women adorn themselves in modest apparel with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness with good works. And some people will go to the extreme and take this verse to mean I can't ever let my daughter braid her hair, which I think is silly and ridiculous because it's not braiding your hair, which is, wrong. It's being extravagant. It's, making such a big deal out of your clothing and your pearls and your gold that you're neglecting to even do any good works with your life. So that's what the verse in context is. If we are professing to be Christian ladies, we should act like it. And we should have good works to go along with our profession of that. We always have to look at context, and modesty in this context is talking about behavior because it talks about your good works. It then goes on to say that we should learn in silence rather than running our mouths during the preaching. To me, it's a turnoff when women are amening louder than the men. It makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know if anyone else is like that, but it makes me very uncomfortable. It's not modest at all. So let's talk about this subject. I do think the younger you are, the more you may struggle with this. And you'll find it even with men, right? I mean, men who are 19, 20 think that they are like God's gift to everyone. They know it all. They've seen it all. They can do it all. Young ladies, not as much, but I have met some that are that way. And I do see older women struggle with this sometimes, but more often the younger women. And I will say too that I see it a lot in the teenage group, the teenage group and the young women group, and working with teens a lot. I often saw this. Excuse me. I'm going to spit out my gum because I don't want to be chomping gum during the whole thing. Hello, Alyssa. All right, Kaylin. Hello, Deidre. Hey, Angeli. So yes, because this one is geared. I think if teenage girls could get a hold of this, I think it would change their life for the better and they could carry it into their adulthood. And I do think that this is very important, especially for teenage girls to learn. So modest in apparel. Obviously, we're going to go over this because modesty in our dress does have to do with modesty in general. So let's talk about clothing. Obviously, pants or skirts is a huge topic, right? Pants or skirts. And I think the Bible's pretty clear about this. I know it's very touchy and it's very taboo to talk about, but I still hold to the personal conviction that we should look feminine and ladylike. As you know, I strive to be feminine. I'm a very girly girl. I like flowers. I like jewelry. I like looking nice. And I feel like in a world, and I've said this often, that is blurring the lines between the sexes, we should do everything we can to stand out as different, going against the grain of society where they're trying to make us all look the same and they're trying to make us all dress the same. And the Bible does talk about an abomination being that a woman that wears that pertains to a man, it's an abomination. Well, that puts that up there with some pretty bad sins. So for me personally, I want to look like a lady. And one of the things that is still distinctly ladylike is skirts. It's one of the only items of clothing that directly pertains to women. I know it's being accepted more and more, but when you see a man in a skirt, it turns my stomach because it's not natural to see a man in a skirt. So, skirts for me are what I go to. And that has to be a personal conviction. I've seen a lot of ladies that they're not convicted about it. But because the denomination that they're in or the group of people that they're running with, because they're pushing it and want to do, everyone in that group wears skirts, then they conform to that. So they conform, although it's not a personal conviction. And you'll find that if they ever have a falling out with that group or they leave that group, they're right back into the old way of dressing, which shows that they weren't doing it because they were convicted. They were doing it because everyone else in that group was. So to me, that's just kind of cult-like, honestly. If you're doing something just because a certain group is doing it, or you hold a position just because a certain group holds it. For me, I don't do things that go against my convictions, even if everyone of my friends are doing that. I'm still going to hold true to that. If I'm part of a group of friends, I'm not going to do something that they're all doing just because they're all doing it. If I'm not going to do something, if I don't do something in my life, I don't not do it just because everyone in my friend group does that. My husband and I have always both kind of been like that, which is probably why we get kicked out of most groups that we're in. When we don't go along with the status quo, then it kind of has a way of causing waves, I guess. But it's just who we are. We've always been that way. People know that about us. So we hold different positions in every area of our life, really. No two people are ever going to agree. It's a true sign of friendship when someone can remain your friend, knowing that there are differences. I just shared something on my Facebook that said, true friendship does not seek to control. So if you are seeking to control your friends or mold them or shape them into the friend that you think they should be, that's not true friendship. And there's a really good book about that. It has the word Glenn in it, Glaen. I can't remember the full title, but I do remember it's a book about friendship, and it was really good. It hit on a lot of that stuff. So I would recommend that. If I can remember the book name, I'll put it in the title. So Angeli, I think a lot of that when you switch over, it is kind of giving up a little bit, I don't know, of control. Now, I actually personally would not suggest giving up something in your life without having the solid conviction behind it. Maybe if you're just convicted to like obey preaching or obey, okay, I don't fully understand this, but I'm going to listen to it. I guess that would be okay. But I've often found that when people just go along to get along, whether that comes to changing the music they listen to, changing the way that they dressed, changing the way that they talk, if it's not something that God has fully impressed upon them, usually they'll slip right back into it. So now when it comes to giving things up, I would definitely replace it with good things. Okay. So let's say that you're like, I'm giving up all of my pants and I'm going to skirts only. Well, you don't need to just pull out the grandma gunny sack that you have hanging up in your closet that no one dresses like that. That's past your ankles and you put on sneakers. You're like, this is what I have. I'm going to wear it. If you're going to give up pants, go out and buy yourself a cute wardrobe. You can find so many good deals at thrift stores. I find cute stuff all the time at thrift stores. So replace those with something. If you're going to be wearing clothes all the time, let's say you have this conviction to go into skirts and you're like, I'm going to be wearing skirts all the time. Have cute skirts. You can have super cute outfits. Angeli, you dress so adorably. So I love your Pinterest boards. I love all the clothes that you pick out. I love your outfits. You have an artist's eye and you can tell by your outfit combinations and stuff that you do. So definitely replace it. Same thing goes with music. So if you are like, I'm giving up my rock music, I'm giving up my country music because it depresses me, replace it with good music. There's all sorts of things on Spotify. I listen to Spotify in the car most of the time and type in Hyles Anderson college music. There's a lot of really good songs that are just very uplifting, very encouraging songs. So you have to replace, when you get rid of something, you have to replace it with something else because our flesh is weak and our flesh is going to automatically go back to something if we don't replace it with something better or something else. So learn to shop smart when it comes to your clothing. Look for sales on Modest clothing. There are like workout clothes. I go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and I wear skirts with leggings underneath because when you're on machines, your skirt's going to come up a little bit and you need to be modest even there. I'm not going to be flashing everyone. with my underclothing as I'm doing a machine. So the workout skirts that are my favorite, I actually have found on Amazon. The skirt goes right to my knees, and then the leggings go about mid calf, and they're perfect. They're very comfortable. They're perfect. I don't feel, even if I did, I've been wearing skirts totally now for 30, no, 27, 26 or 27 years. I've primarily been in skirts. So I wear skirts everywhere. You can do anything in a skirt. But if you buy the athletic skirts with the leggings underneath, you can ride horses, you can work out, you can work in the garden, you can do anything in a skirt. I challenge you to name one thing you can't do in a skirt. Nicole just shared a picture to one of our group chats, and it was ladies back in the Victorian days, and they were literally climbing a mountain, an ice mountain, in their full garb, wearing a skirt. And she was like, this just shows you that women for like centuries have been doing things in skirts. So you can do anything in a skirt. Just remember, it's a heart issue when it comes to clothing. You shouldn't be doing it just to fit in with your crowd. And there's even clothing too. There's always this rule that for myself that I look at. When I put on something, I'll look from the front and from the side and from the back just to see, make sure it's not inappropriately hugging me in places it shouldn't. Like I said, my goal is not to ever draw attention to my physical features, but to my personality, who I am, my eyes. My mom always told me, she said, she would always tell me growing up, Cassie, you have such sparkling brown eyes. And that should be the thing that draws people in, is your eyes. And maybe that's why I'm so big about eye contact. I don't know, but the eyes are the windows to the soul. And you can tell a lot by a person just by looking into their eyes. And I think maybe that's another reason, because I like studying people and I like trying to figure them out. So that should be where someone's eyes are drawn first when they meet you, is to your eyes. And so you want to make sure that your clothes aren't super flashy or tight or revealing. That can be, too low, revealing cleavage. There's a lot of women I've seen who think they're completely modest in something because it's a skirt or it's past their knees, but yet half their chest is showing. To me, that's not modesty. I know there's lots of opinions about that, but that's not modesty. A lot of harlots dress like that, just saying. So let's talk about, oh yes, mod skirts. That's the thing I was going to mention. Thank you, Day. There are lots of sales. You have to check, go subscribe to them. It's Mod Sportswear. And if you subscribe to them, this is like the Baptist company. Okay. One of my favorite mod skirts is so funny. When I was at family camp, literally almost every girl there had that. And you would see like multiple people every day, that's had that purple flowery skirt on. That's like the favorite of the Baptist world. And I thought it was hilarious because like every single one of us girls or ladies had it. Adult women had it. We have it down. I got it down to Hannah. She has one too. And Sarah says she's wearing her mod skirt right now. But a couple of their athletic ones that I work out in the gym, I've gotten on a flash sale. Sometimes they'll have flash sales, and you only find out about that through emails. So go subscribe to their emails. And normally it's about $35, which is an investment. But I will say about the mod skirts, they last forever. I have never had to give away or throw away or trash or get rid of a mod skirt. They've held up. They don't rip. They're made very nicely. They're very versatile. They just withstand a lot. So I think some of the athletic ones I got, they were limited on sizes, but they did have my size. I think I got them for $20 a piece, which is a really, really good deal. And those are some of my favorite workout skirts. So yeah, Mod Sportswear is awesome. Oh, they should sell them. Funny fact is that they actually started their businesses out of Chicago, Illinois. So it's really close to here, within a couple of hours. And they are an Illinois-based business. So hopefully if they get big enough, they'll go to the UK, but just move here. Then you'll be fine. America's better anyways. Just saying. We fought this war a long time ago, but America's better. So let's go on to modest in spirit. All of us have a spirit within us, right? It is our soul and our spirit and all that's interconnected. It's like who makes us who we are, our spirit. Are you a contentious person or are you a peacemaker? You know, um, how is your spirit? Are you willing to make things right? Are you always looking for a fight? Are you always just out like ready to fight people? That's not a modest spirit. If you're always out looking for a fight, looking for conflict, trying to make conflict, or do you avoid conflict or not even avoid conflict, but you try to smooth things over if a conflict arises? Do you throw water on the fire or do you add more fuel to the fire? This all has to do with our spirit. When it comes to giving advice, um, I don't ever want to come across as argumentative, contentious, thinking that my advice is the only legitimate advice. So I've gotten better about this. I'm a problem solver. So if someone's even complaining to me about something or venting to me about something, I want to give solutions to help them. I want to try helping them figure it out. But I've often found that sometimes people just need to vent. Sometimes people are having a bad day and they don't really want my advice. They just want to vent. So what I've come to based off of this is actually really good advice that someone else gave me when it came to advice was they actually told me that their mother-in-law never offered advice unless the daughter-in-law, asked for it. And I love that. And I'm going to really try to incorporate that with all of my in-law kids. I do have a daughter-in-law now, only for a few months, and I have yet to give her any advice. She hasn't asked. I'm not going to offer. I don't ever want to be like that overbearing, annoying mother-in-law. So unless she ever asks me for advice, I'm not giving it. And I've found that often helps in all areas of life. If I have a lady come in the church and she's having a bad day and I can tell she's having a bad day, it's better just to say, "Are you okay? Do you need a hug?" Than saying, "Are you having a bad day? It's because you did this, isn't it?" Or, "Oh, I noticed that you were up late on Facebook last night till midnight. You probably didn't get much sleep. That's probably why, isn't it?" Do you really want to be that person? No, no one wants to be that person. So when it comes to giving advice, I have learned and am learning, work in progress because I'm a problem solver. I have learned and I am learning that I'm not going to offer advice unless it's asked for. I think that's just a good rule of thumb. When it comes to my opinion, I am learning that I probably shouldn't give my opinion, and I mess up on this more than I need to. But I probably shouldn't give my opinion unless someone really cares. And most people don't care about your opinion, honestly. I'm learning that more and more through the years. So most people don't even care. Dwelling in unity together is modest living. Fighting is not. Brawling is not. Being contentious is not. Arguing is not. Confess your faults to one another, ask forgiveness, move on, and forgive each other. Just like parents want their children to get along and stop fighting, God wants us as his people to get along and stop fighting. He does not like it when we fight. So, are we modest in our spirit? Are we willing to be humble? Are we willing to accept fault? Are we willing to apologize? Are we willing to forgive? Sometimes forgiveness is really hard, especially for us women. We like to be bitter. We like to hold grudges. And this is one area my husband has really helped me in because he is not one to shy away from saying, "Cassandra, you need to move on. Cassandra, this is not your problem. Cassandra, stop." And he knows I can only handle so much. I'm already way too busy with everything I'm doing. I already have way too much on my plate. I can't be sitting around obsessing about what so-and-so said to me or obsessing about they gave me their opinion and I didn't ask for it. They gave me advice and I didn't ask for it. I can't, I'm too busy. That can't be in my mind. So I have to let it go. But let's talk about attitude. So we have modest in spirit. What about modest in attitude? Do we flaunt ourselves? Do you flaunt yourselves? You know what I mean by flaunting. A lot of teen girls can do this. Do you flaunt yourself when it comes to your physical looks? Who are you out there to impress? One thing I've noticed, and this This is weird. I've noticed this with a few missionaries, and it always ends this way. A missionary wife, I'll be following her on Instagram or social media, and it's all posts about her kids and her husband and the work that they're doing in whatever country they're in. Well, suddenly her posts start turning into gym posts, which doing a gym post is not bad in and of itself. I'm not condemning all gym posts because I think it's good to encourage each other to work out and take care of yourself, all that stuff. But suddenly the clothes start getting skimpier and skimpier. Suddenly the clothes aren't very modest. Suddenly she's focusing on different parts of her body, zooming in, taking pictures. And then suddenly her and her husband are divorced. So I've often found that women who become very obsessed with their looks, with their gym pictures, everything, all that, they end up eventually it ends in divorce. I think they just become so self-obsessed, and then their marriage starts falling apart. And I don't know, maybe they're using the gym for an outlet because they have a bad marriage. Maybe they go hand in hand. I don't know, but I've often found that, and it's actually happened to 2 or 3 different ministry families that I've seen throughout my life. So, and be careful about focusing so much on your physical looks. Do you flaunt yourself when it comes to your brains? Some women pride themselves in being smart and intelligent, and they will flaunt that. They will flaunt their knowledge to others, around others, even talent. Are you a good singer? Do you have to overdo it every time you sing a song and make sure that you are the belle of the ball and make sure that you are the star of the show and everyone can hear your voice and how great it is and how wonderful it is? It's not very modest. What about your piano playing? Do you have to play the piano any event you're at? Or can you just sit back and chill and enjoy the talents of others? Someone who has to be the center of attention, doing all the things all the time, and is not willing to just sit back and listen and enjoy, that's a big red flag. That's not very modest living. Do you put others before yourself, or are you number one? Are you the only one that you think about? Here's a way to not be modest. Do you gossip about others? Do you tell everyone's stories about someone else? You tell everyone the bad that you see in someone else, or do you lift others up to people? Do you spread stories, or do the stories stop with you? Okay. I would like to think that if someone comes to me with anything, first of all, this is usually what happens if someone comes to me with something. I try to smooth it over. I don't like people fighting. So I try to smooth it over. I try to think, well, I think it's because this was going on, or I think it's because this was going on. Maybe this was going on in their life. Maybe they're going through this. Maybe they were having a bad day and you were just there at the wrong moment. Try to be a peacemaker, try to smooth it over rather than adding fuel to the fire and being like, oh my good, they did what? Are you kidding? Oh, well, that's just awful. Tell me more. I never want to be the person that throws fuel on the fire. Do you judge situations righteously? Will you listen to one side but not the other side? Will you listen at all? I'd like to think, I don't know, with my friends, I feel like all my close friends, I know they would just not want to listen to anything that people bring to them, especially if they know me in real life and we're close and all that. But the same goes for anyone in my immediate family. I'm not going to want people listening to gossip about my family or my kids or anything like that. So are you a fire stopper or a fire starter? Are you do you put out the fire, or do you add more fuel to the fire? Are you dismissive of every other opinion but yours? Are you dismissive of every other side of the story but yours? There's always 2 sides to every story. Are you known to be in the middle of every drama fest? Anytime there's drama at church, your name's brought up. Well, this person told me. Well, this person said. Well, this person is saying this. This person is telling this to someone else. So are you known to be in the middle of every drama fest? Are you constantly involved in drama? Are you constantly involved in fighting? That's not living modestly. Do you esteem other people higher than others? Do you only have these friends, but you'll have nothing to do with these friends? That's a big red flag. That's not living modestly. Are you someone's friend only because of what they can offer you and not the other way around? Not being a friend just because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do be friendly to everyone, right? Do you like all eyes on you at every social function? Do you want to be the center of attention? Do you want to have the loudest voice? Do you want to have the loudest laugh? Do you want to be the one telling all the stories? You know, the way you carry yourself, the way you walk, the volume of your voice, and the way you talk to everyone says a lot about you. And if you're constantly in the middle of the fray of every drama thing that goes on in the church, if you're constantly, you can tell. Like I said, teenage girls tend to do this quite more than married girls. I feel like when you get married, it really subdues you in a way and gives you more to focus on than just yourself. And that's why maybe the Bible tells us to get married and have kids and guide the house. I don't know, just a thought. Maybe that's why the Bible says that. So this is just more something to keep in your mind as you're going through life. But let's talk about modest in spending. Do you run up credit cards? Do you have to have the latest trends and fashions just because everyone else does? Do you have extravagant tastes in regard to food? Or are you happy eating at McDonald's? And okay, full disclaimer, I'm not a McDonald's girl. I'm not crazy about McDonald's. But there have been times when we've been traveling and the only restaurant is McDonald's, because let's face it, McDonald's is pretty much in every town, in every state. It's everywhere, right? In every country of the world, McDonald's is there. So you know what I do? I don't complain. I get my chicken nuggets and I eat them with my sweet and sour sauce, and I'm happy. I'm fine. I'm not very happy they got rid of their salads, because they actually did have a decent salad. But I'm just as happy eating McDonald's as I am at the 5-star restaurant. I don't ever want to be so high maintenance that, my husband can't take me anywhere to eat, or we can't go on a trip because maybe McDonald's is the only choice I have. And am I going to complain the whole time and make his life miserable because I had to eat McDonald's? Do you stress your husband out because he can't afford the fancy restaurants and yet you demand them? Do you know how to thrift? Do you know how to go to thrift stores? Do you know how to make a home cozy on the cheap? Or are you used to the top name brand? Are there name brand decorations? I don't even know. Okay, you're used to just going into fancy places and buying expensive wall paintings or expensive pottery. And let me tell you, if you are young and you're getting married and you're going to have kids, it's stupid to even spend money on that expensive stuff. Wait until they're all grown and gone, except then you have grandkids coming over. We've never had expensive things. I am more than happy to go find my things at a thrift store, knowing that they'll probably get broken. And then instead of breaking my child's will or breaking my child's feelings, I'll just throw it in the trash and I'll be like, that's $5 down the drain. Not a big deal. It's not more important than my kid. So can you budget? Okay. Can you budget? I'm talking about you don't get paid and then you just see how long you can make it on that money. No, I'm talking about sitting down and having a working budget. You have a certain amount of money for food every week. You have a certain amount of food. You have a certain amount of money for clothing every week. You have a certain amount of money for entertainment. You have a certain amount of money. Obviously, for me as a Christian, my number one thing is automatically 10% off the gross, not the take home. 10% off the gross goes towards tithing. Automatic. We've done it that way since the day we were married, and God has always blessed us and God has always provided. Some people think we're crazy because that's a lot of money every year that's going straight to the church, but we believe in tithing. So as a Christian, that's what I do. Number two, obviously groceries are super expensive for our family. That's anywhere from $300 to $350. I have $300 budgeted out of our main budget. That's our joint account, but I usually do about $350, and that the extra $50 comes from my piano lesson money. So I make up any difference. Anything that I spend over our joint account, I make up, and that's where my piano lesson money comes in. So my piano lesson money also covers any extras that come up, whether that's clothing for the kids, shoes for the kids, fun activities. Like this last weekend, we went to Tommy and Jenna's. If we get pizza when we're there, any type of thing like that, then that comes out of my piano lesson money rather than our joint account. But we do have a working budget in place. A lot of women have no idea where to even start with this. So if and when they get married, they're completely thrown for a loop because now they have limits put on them. Do you have limits in your life right now? If you're living at home, if your parents say, here's my credit card, you can only spend $50. Do you spend 60? Do you spend 75? That's a big red flag, because that's going to carry over into your marriage when your husband says, babe, we only have $30 in the budget this week for fast food or eating out or whatever. $30 is not going to go get you to Texas Roadhouse. Okay. You're not going to Texas Roadhouse for a steak on $30. That might be more of a chicken McNugget night at McDonald's. Are you going to gripe about that? Are you going to complain? Are you going to make your husband miserable because he can't afford the steak? It's just learn to have a modest way of living. Can you make cheap, healthy meals for your family? Chili is an amazing, cheap, healthy meal. I'm actually making that after I'm done here. I'm going to go work out, and then we're going to go home and make chili because it's so cold and crisp and it's fall in Illinois. So we're going to make chili with beans, because chili without beans is abominable. Now I'm holding to that. So we're making chili with the beans and it's going to be great. But it's a super cheap, healthy meal. In fact, I make the Trim Healthy Mama version of chili, and it's full of a lot of meat and just like 1 or 2 cans of beans, but it's so good. And all the spices, learn to cook with spices. Spices make everything better. You can make something so simple like soup or chili into a very nice meal, and just adding all those spices. So let's talk about modesty in your good works. We should at all times strive, when we're serving the Lord, to do things to serve the Lord and not to be seen of men. So do you only do things that will have you be seen? If you're involved in a church, if your only ministry is only doing things on the platform and nothing else, you don't help in the kitchen, you don't help with the food, you don't help cook, you don't help clean, you don't help whatever it is, you don't go soul winning. All you do is your job is to sing or only do things in front of the camera. That's a big red flag. That's not being modest at all, actually. Learn to graciously receive a compliment. Sorry, Angeli. Learn to graciously receive a compliment, but realize that you aren't serving for compliments. People, and this is what you need to get a hold of. This is why you serve the Lord and not people. Yes, I knew you were talking about the chili. Well, if you don't eat beans, I'm going to make you chili sometime with my beans, and you're going to see how good it is. Actually, Jason hates beans, and he won't eat my chili because it has beans in it. He was eating some chili one time, and he was talking about how good it was because it didn't have beans. And I'm like, you are not my son. Just get thee behind me, Satan, because you are not my son. If you don't eat chili with beans, you're not my son. That's all I have to say about that. But yes, get a hold of this, that people will turn on you rather quickly. So if you're serving the Lord just for the compliments of people, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Not everyone needs to know about all your accomplishments. Not everyone needs to know, that you spent 10 hours cleaning the floors. Now, for the people that help in our church, we appreciate every bit of it. Believe me, everything that everyone does, that's something I'm not going to have to do. So, because it's going to have to get done one way or the other. So for the people that do serve, my husband does try to acknowledge that, and I think it's good to acknowledge the hard work of others. We just had a man that spent hours shampooing the carpets, and he took his own time, and that was a way. And he is the type that would not want anyone to say anything about it. He does stuff like that all the time. He's always doing background stuff, fixing lights, fixing tiles. He looks for things to do, and then he does it without any fanfare, without, look at me, everyone, look at me, I'm fixing something. He just very humbly serves. And I think that's a great attribute to have. And I think that would be good for everyone to have that. Work hard in the background, and someday you're going to see the fruit of that. So what do I mean by this? There's a verse that talks about, I wish Beth was in the chat putting all these verses. There's a verse that talks about basically learning to quietly work with your own hands or something along those lines. If anyone can Google it and put it in there, it'd be great. But as women, we do need to just be quietly about our business. And that's when it comes to raising kids. We just need to do it. Actions speak more than words. So we can talk a big game, but raising kids is hard, nitty-gritty work. And every day, day in and day out, we need to be consistent with being intentional about things we want our kids to have, whether that's character, whether that's setting them up to live life, whether that is learning the Bible, whether that's instilling good character principles into them. We need to be intentional about it. Having a good marriage takes work. You have to keep the communication lines open. You have to forgive quickly. You have to move on quickly. You have to talk things out. You have to plan for the romantic times. You have to make time for each other. But you invest from the day that you get married, if you invest in that, you keep your grudge list non-existent. And speaking of, look at this. I have to tell this. This is a non-scale victory. This is the first day I have worn my ring. This is my wedding ring. Normally I wear a silicone band. This is the first time I'm easily distractible. I've worn my ring since before Kelly. So this is a non-scale victory. I am down 20 pounds now, 23 since last October. I'm down 20 since July now. And my ring fits on my finger. Now it's a little tight when I go to get it off. It's just like right here over the knuckle. It gets a little tight, but it fits really good. There's even a little bit of a gap between it. But I am so happy because I have not been able to wear my real wedding ring for over 6 years now, just about 6 years. The whole time I was pregnant with her, I couldn't wear it either. So about 6 years now, I've not been able to wear it. So first day in 6 years that I've been able to wear it all day long. So I'm very happy about that. But back to the topic at hand. Marriage is a work in progress, and you have to keep a short grudge list. In fact, have it non-existent. You have to forgive. You have to talk together. You have to laugh together. You have to build that, and don't let offenses build in your marriage. Resolve them quickly. And then investing in friendships. Some friendships, for me, if I've been investing in a friendship for years, I'm not going to just throw that away. It takes a lot for me to walk away from a friendship because I do really care a lot about my friends and I put a lot of time and effort into those. Realize that life is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and pace yourself accordingly. I see people burn out all the time. People that just get saved and they're on board for everything. Like their dress standards change, their music tastes change, everything changes. Their, who they listen to with preaching changes. They're going soul winning. They're reading their Bible. And then within a year, they're completely burnt out because they just, boom, took off. But they didn't allow themselves they didn't set out for a slow pace. So they kind of went over the top and they started like, okay, we're throwing out our TV. We're never watching movies, but yet they didn't replace it with anything good. Okay. So let's say as a woman, you're used to reading trashy romance novels or something. That's like your downfall. Well, you're like, I'm quitting cold turkey. I'm dropping them all gone. So you throw them all out. Well, then you don't replace that with anything. So within a year, you're like, this is stupid. I'm just going to give up, whatever. Well, why don't you replace that with movies that are wholesome? So, rather than just giving everything up cold turkey, start watching Fireproof. That's a really good, wedding movie, I guess. Pride and Prejudice is clean. There's lots of good, wholesome movies that are clean, that aren't a sin to watch. So I feel like some people go so gung-ho, or they're like, I'm giving up on my pants. And you know what? I'm going to Little House on the Prairie clothing. And then they look Amish, and then they just get sick of everyone pointing and laughing and whispering or whatever. And so then they're like, this is stupid. I'm not doing this anymore. And they give up. So you need to learn to pace yourself. You need to do something that's sustainable in life, because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So, what did Angeli say? Thank you. She put the verse, and that you study to be quiet and to do your own business and to work with your own hands as we commanded you. I think that's so important. If us women would just get a hold of that, that would eliminate like 90% of the drama in our life, 90% of fighting, 90% of conflict, 90% of discord, even with our own husbands. If we would just study to be quiet and do our own business and work with our own hands, we're going to be too busy to get into fights with our husband. So I think in all areas, that would help if we definitely did that. Chili without meat is pasta sauce at best. I don't even make my pasta sauce. You mean beans or meat? I don't even make my pasta sauce is not just sauce. I have a very meaty pasta sauce that I use. It's mostly meat and a little bit of tomato sauce stuff mixed in. That's how I do my, they would call it somewhere, what is it, like, I don't know, it's a B word. They call it like in the UK and Ireland, I think she called it that. Bolognese or something, I think she called it. But yeah, I think that's a British thing, maybe. You know, Steak and Shake had this chili bowl or chili max that they called it, and it was spaghetti with chili on top. And I tried it one time and thought it was the most disgusting thing I've ever had in my life. So there's that. It is not my thing, for sure. But back to this, sorry. So these are my last tips with just having modesty and good works. Be at church, worship, get along with everyone, give to your church, give to the Lord, give to the service of the Lord, invest. And when I say invest, I mean invest in your kids, invest in your marriage, invest in your friendships, raise your kids, guide your home, love your husband, soul win, cook nourishing meals, instill principles into your kids' hearts, teach them the way of life that you want them to go, teach them Bible, do it humbly and admit your mistakes and grow and learn and be modest in what you're doing. Remember, modesty is not just clothing. It's the opposite of arrogant and proud. It's the opposite of causing strife and division. So many Baptist women, we have the clothing part down, but we're not modest in other areas of our life. I definitely feel like this is something we can all work on, and I'm here to encourage you to work on it in every area of your life. And remember, when it comes to all the things I mentioned above, being at church, worshiping, raising your kids, investing in your marriage, investing in your friendship, the fruit eventually comes out from all those things. It comes out if you've been doing it for the right reasons. It comes out in how you've raised your children. Have you instilled these principles into their hearts? Or have they decided to go a completely different way than what they were taught? You know, the principle in Proverbs of train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That's not like this clear cut. My husband was explaining to me the difference between principles, which Proverbs is full of. The principle is there. If you raise up a child in the way he's going to go, when he's old, he will not depart from it. The principle is there, but there's a lot that factors into that as far as like a kid having his own will and all of that. But if overall every single one of your kids are choosing to walk away from the way that you've tried training them in, something's missing. There's something missing in that. And the fruit always comes out in that, usually once your kids are young adults or they're married, or even sometimes they've been married 10 years and it comes out or whatever. So the fruit's always going to come out. If you're a church hopper, you know, and you're constantly hopping from one church to another, that the fruit of that's going to come out too. It's going to come out in your kids not having stability or balance, or your kids always giving up when they start something. That's going to come out in that. When it comes to your husband, if you don't invest the time, eventually 15, 20 years ago, the fruit of that's going to come out, maybe in the form of a divorce, or he's unhappy and, you know, he feels like he doesn't matter to you, or he's not your top priority. So make him your top priority. Make the Lord your number one priority, your husband your number two, and your kids your number three. And if you do that, the fruit of that will come out eventually. So, okay. So let me, everyone's still talking about spaghetti. Brits do it on jacket potatoes or rice. That sounds absolutely disgusting. So you can continue to have that little tradition. I'm glad that didn't make it over to America. And then poor man spaghetti is what we called it growing up. So hope it went okay, Esther. Hope your foot appointment went okay. And then, okay, so we're going to wrap it up there. I hope you all have a lovely week. And go ahead and like this video while you're on here right now. Go ahead and share it. We had a good amount of people watching today, so over 20 the whole time. So thank you to my 20 consistent listeners, whether you're listening to me because you hate me or I annoy you or you actually like listening, which that might be about 5 of you. My 5 friends that are watching. But thank you for tuning in. Go ahead and like and share it and all that good stuff. Just remember, serve the Lord for the right reasons this week. Love your husband for the right reasons. Love your kids for the right reasons. And the fruit of that will eventually come out. So I hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next week.